Okay, so when you picture a gladiator, what comes to mind? Probably something straight out of a movie, right? Well, get ready, because science is about to tell us a story that's completely different and honestly, way more interesting.
I mean, look at this. On one side, you've got the myth, chiseled abs, bulging biceps, probably living on a diet of lean meat. And on the other side, the reality, a thick layer of fat fueled by barley and beans. It's a total mismatch, right? So the big question is, how on earth did we get this so wrong for so long?
You know exactly what I'm talking about. Hollywood has basically been feeding us this one image forever. I mean, think Russell Crowe in Gladiator. Think the TV show Spartacus. They're all portrayed as these ancient super athletes, total physical specimens. And that image, it's really stuck with us.
But here's the thing. If you could hop in a time machine and travel back to the actual Colosseum, what you'd see would be, well, something very different. That whole powerful image is just smoke and mirrors. The real evidence we have now point to something much less about being a Superman and a whole lot more about being strategic. So what was the big turning point? How did we finally separate the Hollywood myth from the historical fact? Well, it all hinges on one absolutely game-changing discovery, an actual gladiator graveyard that turned everything we thought we knew on its head. See, up until 1993, pretty much all our knowledge came from old Roman texts, and those can be tricky, right? They can be biased or just plain vague. But then everything changed. Archaeologists unearthed this huge gladiator graveyard in Ephesus, Turkey. And just like that, for the very first time, we had the bones. The actual physical remains of these fighters, just waiting for modern science to tell their story. And we're not talking about a couple of skeletons here. They found the remains of more than 60 gladiators. That is a massive deal for researchers. It's a huge sample size, which means they could finally move beyond guesswork and start drawing some really solid evidence-based conclusions about how these guys actually lived and fought.
So how do you figure out what someone ate 2,000 years ago? The secret weapon is something called isotopic analysis. It sounds complicated, but the idea is pretty simple. Think of your bones as a lifelong food diary. Everything you eat leaves a tiny chemical trace behind. So by analyzing those traces, scientists can literally reconstruct a person's diet with shocking accuracy.
And when they ran this analysis on the gladiator bones, the results were frankly stunning. These elite fighters, these ultimate warriors, they ate almost no meat. Their diet was pretty much vegetarian.
Okay, wait a minute. If they're not chowing down on meat, then what in the world were they eating to fuel themselves for one of the most brutal jobs in history? Well, the answer lies in a nickname they were given. A nickname that tells us everything we need to know.
Get this, the Romans themselves had a nickname for them. They called them Hordearii, and that translates directly to Barley Men. Isn't that wild? This brand new scientific discovery was really just confirming something that was common knowledge way back in ancient Rome.
And you can see it right here. Just look at their diet. It's dominated by carbohydrates. We're talking barley, beans, oats, making up a massive chunk of what they ate. Dried fruit was in there, but meat, it's that tiny little sliver. It was a treat, for sure, not a daily staple.
So this raises a really big question, right? Why would you feed your top-tier, highly trained athletes what seems like a cheap, carb-heavy diet? You'd think it was about saving money, but no. It was something much smarter. It was a deliberate, life-saving strategy.
I mean, really think about it. These gladiators were incredibly valuable investments for their owners. Keeping them healthy and alive was the #1 priority. So why wouldn't you give them what we think of as a performance diet? The answer has everything to do with the show, the bloody spectacle of the arena.
Okay, so here's the genius, if brutal, logic behind it all. Step 1, you load them up with carbs to build a thick layer of fat. Step 2, that fat acts like a cushion, protecting all the important stuff underneath, vital organs, nerves, muscles. So, step 3, when a gladiator gets cut, the wound looks absolutely spectacular. It's bloody, it's dramatic, the crowd goes wild, but it's not fatal. And the result? A much longer, more entertaining fight, and a gladiator who lives to fight another day.
They basically created biological armor. That layer of fat wasn't a weakness, it was a huge professional advantage. Being a bit chunky meant you could take a slice or a stab that would put a shredded, muscular guy out of commission for good. It was all about survival and putting on a good show.
But wait, there's more.
The diet wasn't the only secret the bones gave up. The analysis pointed to something else. A really bizarre but incredibly effective, kind of ancient sports drink they were taking to help them recover.
What tipped them off was that the gladiator bones had these crazy high levels of minerals, specifically calcium and strontium, way higher than your average person living in Rome at the time. And that was a real head-scratcher. How are these guys on a mostly plant-based diet getting that much calcium?
Well, the answer, once again, was hiding in those old texts. They described a gladiator's tonic. And you might want to brace yourself for this. After a fight, they would drink a mix of charred plant ash, or even bone ash, mixed with vinegar. I know it sounds absolutely disgusting, right? But it was a super concentrated mineral supplement. This gnarly ash and vinegar cocktail was pretty much the world's first sports recovery drink. All that concentrated calcium did a couple of really important things. It helped their bones heal incredibly fast from fractures, and it made their whole skeleton stronger, better able to take the absolute beating they endured in the arena.
So when you put all these pieces together, the diet, the body type, the weird recovery drink, the whole picture of the gladiator just completely transforms. We have to throw out that Hollywood myth and look at the real, much more complex and honestly much smarter reality. And this is the perfect way to see it. The myth is the chiseled, protein-powered killing machine. But the reality? It's the bulky, carb-loaded survivor. A fighter who was literally engineered not just to win, but to bleed, to endure, and to make the show last.
At the end of the day, their bodies were a kind of technology. These Barley Men weren't just warriors, they were professional entertainers, and every part of their physiology, from their biological armor of fat to their ash-fortified bones, was fine-tuned for one purpose: the spectacle of the Roman arena.
It really makes you think, though, doesn't it? If we got the story of the gladiator, one of the most famous figures in history, so completely wrong, what other truths from the past are really just myths we've all agreed to believe?